And my scientific case study that I found was on the use of creative art as a strategy for case formulation in psychotherapy. So before I dive into the article that I found or the case study that I found, I wanted to give a brief narrative regarding my favorite artist, Vincent van Gogh. Artist used to collaborate with Paul Gauguin, another famous artist. So during their time together, they had a huge dispute which ultimately led to Van Gogh attacking his fellow artist. And after the dispute, Van Gogh went through extreme mental instability and angst, like all artists, and cut off a piece of his ear. Van Gogh then went to give his ear to his favorite model and check himself into a mental institute, where he painted the scenery of his outside window in his room, starry nights. And the significance behind this is that art allowed Van Gogh, a man of mental instability and emotional grief, to express his psychosis into an artwork, something that the case study of Semra Karakra and Nuren Heron emphasizes. They are studying the use of creative art as a strategy for case formulation being the assessment of one's state in psychotherapy. In most cases, it is difficult to determine one's psychosis, but through art, expression of one's individuality is efficiently portrayed, giving psychotherapists the opportunities to utilize art as a tool. What explanation, Semra Karakara and Nuren Heron attempt to see if creative art is a helpful strategy for case formulation in psychotherapy. With a further understanding of the patient's psychosis, we are able to facilitate understanding of the patient and increase empathy. And with an ideal case formulation provided by an efficient method, which is creative art, we will able to increase consistency between intervention and treatment plans. What is expected from this case study to the real world is the application of the method to patients of psychosis. It is expected, if the hypothesis is correct, that the use of creative art will improve efficiently with the case formulation in psychotherapy. If it is confirmed, therapists will be able to analyze their patients to a further extent and reach better conclusions and mental diagnosis of their patients. In this case study are qualitative measurements in dealing with things more abstract. Data in this case is not represented through numbers but through drawings as it uses creative art. However, the data is measured through a qualified psychotherapist and 4 interactive sessions, all 60 minutes long with a psychosis patient named Susan. The data achieved were the reflective responses between 2 individuals and drawings as well that reflected their feelings that they were unable to articulate or construct. And according to the case study, the reference of Jung and many other philosophers indicated that through art, they were able to unravel their subconscious mind. Their first session acted as an orientation that went through the process of the case study as well as asking for consent for participation. In session 2 and 3, the subject or patient was given a limited variety of art tools for their choosing to draw, paint, or do anything else. After each session, the psychotherapist discussed what the patient and what their uh, creative artistic creation conveys to pinpoint certain elements that may act as an important representation to the patient. For example, in session 3, Susan drew a house with a cat outside. With further discussion with the psychotherapist, they were able to identify what the elements represented, the house being Susan's old house and the cat being herself. Before finalizing the representation of each element in the artwork created by the patient, the psychotherapist waits and listens for the patient to convey their ideas and their drawings before verifying any attributes. In session 4, they discuss a treatment plan to suit the patient utilizing the creative art sessions provided before. They were able to diagnose the patient with early Oedipal stage symptoms as well as defense mechanisms of split personalities. With the diagnosis, they were able to conclude with a treatment plan, which were careful surveillance and further psychosis treatments such as extensive counseling. With the data provided, it verifies and confirms our prediction that creative art efficiently contributes to creating a case formulation in psychotherapy. The hypothesis is supported through the case study of Susan and her proper diagnosis and treatment plan given to her. However, there are other factors that could come into play that we have to consider as well. A patient is subjected through all senses, subconsciously even. What if the specific sense was receptive to a factor that subtly altered a patient's ability to think linearly in terms of the case study? For example, The environment of the room that the case study was held in is a huge factor in deciding if a patient is optimal in reflecting and discussing themselves. The odor of the room may have made the patient slightly feel repulsive, making them more withdrawn, putting the case study at risk. Or the lighting of the room may have subconsciously connotated ideas with other certain ideas. For example, if a room was red lighting, it may connotate to more angry emotions or more vulgar or exotic ideas or connotations. But if the room lighting was blue, the patient or individual may reflect a more sad, sorrowful, and forlorn experience, which make them more, which which they become more inclined to discussing those experiences as well, and other colors as well as yellow, green, or magenta, things like that may trigger a different experience or different connotation of ideas.